one of the things that I think I've experienced is the fatigue. And Alan did a fantastic little thing on fatigue for the Nats website. I've enjoyed teaching online, but I teach differently. It's twice as exhausting and twice as time consuming, and I wouldn't do it all the time. But in these circumstances, I've had to do it, and I'm learning. So, a grey-haired grandmother that I am, I'm learning as fast as I possibly can to keep up with the technology. And we felt that it was really beneficial to hear from some experts about how we can teach, perhaps using the technology in a wiser way. So yes, please, if you can, mute yourselves so that when Filipa and Mauro do their presentation, it'll be about 20 minutes long. But we will, after that, we will hear, I think, from Barbara and her colleagues who've been doing some online teaching in Germany. And then the opportunity will be there for you to talk. But please use the chat. We will keep that as well. So all your messages. It's so wonderful to see you. I feel a huge privilege just to be able to join with our wonderful friends from across the pond and around the world. So I'm now going to pass over to Filipa.
Thank you, Susan. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. And I hope you can all see my screen as I put it up. Can you see it? Yes?
Yes, it's
Okay.
working.
Lovely. And I would like to start by acknowledging EVTA for the opportunity of having us all here today to discuss this important matter of online lessons in a time of a pandemic. And welcome my colleague and friend Mauro Fiuza from ApVoz in Portugal. He is also a teacher of singing and a PhD student of voice education. And he has experience in teaching online as well for more than 10 years now in Brazil when he was there.
Only seven.
Only 7, almost 10, almost 10. Okay, so we will start by saying that according to a wonderful paper that is available in a journal of, I think is LPV, by my friend Brian Gill and my friend Christian Herbst. A voice teacher has a role or can has the role of 3 people in one. Could be a voice builder, could be a vocal coach, and could be a singing health specialist. Today, we are going to present some tips focusing on a voice builder. So in one-to-one lessons over the internet, and just talking about this setup. Because if we were going to talk about the setup of a teacher as a vocal coach that rehearses with the students or is a choir director and has the need to rehearse over the internet, then the setup that we will need to teach is completely different. For example, at the moment, there are software and hardware that has been developed for vocal coaching over the internet. And this hardware and software allow us to diminish the delay time of the sound being processed through the computer, through the microphone, passing all the systems that it has to, and then go to the internet. So that delay is decreased by this type of software. For example, we see here Susanna Rosenberg from Sweden, a very known and beautiful Kulning singer who is involved in the Royal Stockholm Conservatory of Music in Sweden. in the development of Aloha, that is a software that allows people to be singing together through the internet without this delay. And the video is still not available, but the audio is available. So you can connect through the video with Zoom, for example, then unmute the microphone there and run the audio through this hardware and software. There is also the fast music option and the software sound jack and all others that exist in the market. But as I said today, we are going to focus only on the setup of individual lessons to build the instrument, so to teach vocal technique and help the students in developing their voices, although they are not with us in the same room. So we will be talking about the importance of an internet connection, what types of meeting platforms there are available, the microphone choice we could have, also a choice for external sound cards and audio interfaces, the loudspeakers versus headphones, and the lighting in the room, and also just touching a little bit of the importance of, in this type of setup, using a different type of feedback, like the real-time visual feedback technology in online teaching. So Mauro, tell us about the internet connection.
So it's a pleasure to be here in this meeting. It's my second time in this EVTA, on an EVTA event. I was in Stockholm and ICVT. But the internet connection, it's something that we don't know. We don't have much information. We've looked on the specifications of the platforms like Skype, Zoom, and some others. We will see that they recommend at least a minimum of 2 megabytes per second of internet speed for a regular chat, one-to-one chat. But for high quality sounds, some platforms recommend up to 100 megabytes per second. So you need a more powerful internet. And also we have different types of connection. We have the cable connection that we call the Ethernet, and the wireless connection that may be Wi-Fi, mobile, and satellite. But the most recommendable is the cable, the Ethernet, because the Wi-Fi can produce a lot of latency and delay the transmission of the signal a bit. And we have many meeting platforms up to now, like Jitsi, Skype, Zoom, Teams. But the most important thing when you're going to teach one-to-one lesson is to adjust the settings of these platforms. So this is a Zoom print screen, and we have some options we need to set up, like we need to shut down the automatic adjustments, like the echo cancellation or noise cancellation or volume adjustments. Also, it's quite important and it's essential actually to indicate the right input and output of the sound, so or you're not gonna listen or your student, they're not gonna listen anything. And in Zone, we have the advanced settings that we can choose now what they call the original sound, but different software, different platforms will require different settings. But we need to turn this automatic controls off.
And then we did a comparison, very interesting, being me the student and Mauro the teacher. And Mauro, on the other end of the connection, was running Voce Vista. And we tried at the same time, actually, recording the same vowel on Skype and on Zoom. So let's listen to the example. So very striking example that depending on the meeting platform that you use, no matter what microphone you choose or the position of that microphone, you might have very different quality of sound. And why is that? Because the meeting platforms have differences in terms of the sampling rate of transmission. For example, Skype uses 16 kilohertz, where Zoom is 44. So no wonder that Zoom has a better sound quality than Skype, for example. And we are not being paid by any company to say this.
Unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. Then we have the noise level. You can see that the Skype, you have much more noise in the upper part of the signal. And in Zoom, you still can see individual partials above 5 kilohertz. Also, it is a better definition of individual partials in Zoom as compared with Skype, and the amplitude of the partials will also change if you are looking at, for example, a power spectrum. So this the message here concerning the meeting platforms is whatever you choose, be aware that there are these differences. And of course, if you can choose for a better quality of sound platform rather than just because it's have something that you have by your side very easily to use. You can start with that, but then if you have to keep going on with the online lessons, maybe it's very good and very important for your student and for yourself to improve the conditions of receiving the signal and transmitting the signal.
And a way to improve this transmission of the signal is to choose a better microphone. So when we are picking up a microphone, we need to be aware of the frequency response and also the directionality and positioning of where you're going to be when singing and giving your examples. The frequency response will define which sound frequencies a microphone is able to capture. So sometimes there are some enhancements in the microphone, because sometimes they're produced to make your voice warmer or make your voice more beautiful to sound in a commercial recording or on a stage. But we don't want it when you're teaching. We want to hear the real sound. So we need a flat response, like this red line over there. It means that this microphone is not changing the signal too much, only above 5,000 hertz. And also we need to be aware of how we are positioned with the microphone, because I can really change my voice if I sing like this or if I sing like this. My microphone will change a bit of the sound, and that's why we have some what we call the polar patterns. That is what area the microphone will capture the sound. So for example, an omnidirectional microphone will capture from all the area around the microphone, and the cardioid microphone, it has this name cardioid because the area, it looks almost like a heart. So it won't capture sound from behind the microphone, but it can change the signal depending on where you are.
So if you are in a very reverberant room for teaching, you would and noisy, you would go for a cardioid microphone, because with that you will only capture the sound that comes from the front of the mouth and not. So you can see the difference. But if the room is okay, then it's better to go and use an omnidirectional microphone. And also, according to where you position your microphone and whether you choose an omnidirectional or a cardioid, you will also have a difference in the output that you get from the student. For example, here, omnidirectional. Once again, this is recorded with 2 microphones at the same time. So I'm not producing 2 vowels. It's the same vowel with 2 microphones, one omnidirectional and one cardioid. And you can see that the quality of the sound is quite different. Actually, if you go and look at the different amplitudes of particular harmonic partials, for example, with an omnidirectional microphone, you have the first harmonic partial and the second harmonic partial almost the same in intensity as it shows here in an horizontal axis. So we have time there and frequency there, and the intensity is given by the color here, and here the intensity is given by the height of the peak. And you can see that both first and second harmonic partials are quite the same. But if we analyze the same exact vowel but with a cardioid microphone, you can see that there is a boost in the second harmonic partial. So if you are working with your student concerning form and tuning strategies, or for example with sopranos, the F1 F0 match, you must be aware that depending on what microphone the student is using, you might be hearing different things. So please pay attention into that. So to summarize, to have a flat frequency response absent of a peak over a wide range of frequencies is a good thing for a microphone, and also to be measuring the sound pressure level, because intensity also affects very much the voice. So an omnidirectional microphone would be better for that purpose. So the minimum sensitivity or frequency response is between 50 hertz and 8 kilohertz, and ideally to cover a flat response between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. That is the normal hearing range. And of course, from lesson to lesson, if you are working in a particular aspect of the voice, please be aware that the student should have more or less the same position of the microphone to the mouth and to the center of the mouth. For example, if you use a stand microphone approximately 30 centimeters, if it's omnidirectional, with a headset microphone or a cardioid, maybe you want to place the microphone closer to the mouth, approximately 15 to 20 centimeters.
And here we have some tips of microphones with different price range from 40 to 300 euros. This 40 euro microphone is not good. It's not bad because it's cheap. Actually, it's quite good. So if you buy this Behringer, you'll be happy with the results. It's actually used for investigation, for research, so it's pretty good. And for the head-mounted microphones, for those who want to be free with your hands and in movements, also we have some different prices, but the good quality. And another thing we need to care is the audio interface or external sound card, because they contain what we call the preamplifier. Preamp is something that amplifies the signal of the sound and allows you to control the amplification, so it can increase or decrease the input and output of the sound. Also, it improves the audio processing because we don't use too much of the computer to process the sound, and it makes you to save some money with better computers. But these audio interfaces, we need to know what we're looking for. So we need at least 2 inputs, one for the microphone, another one for an instrument or a keyboard, a guitar, whatever. It has to be an USB output. Currently, all the interfaces have a USB output, but if you have a very old interface, it's possible that you don't. And you need also a phantom power, that is the electric feeding of the microphone. And if you use a condenser microphone, you need a phantom power. And some examples too. This Focusrite is quite good, but we also have this Behringer for half of the price, but also quite good as well.
also we have to be, as a teacher, careful of how we perceive the sound in the other end of the line. So we would recommend to avoid loudspeakers when using high quality audio transmission, because may cause sound feedback, for example. So instead, our recommendation would be to use a headphone that would be open in the back, because then you can have the perception of your own sound when you are singing, providing an example to the student, or when you are talking to the student, and you don't need to raise your voice. And of course, is always preferable to have an open headphone over a closed back headphone, but even more preferable than having inner ear headphone, because that is quite dangerous to the hearing system, to be all the time hearing the sound inside your ear. Some tips also for concerning headphones: you can have like for 40 euros a Samsung headphone that is quite nice, and it's not very pricey. Another thing, Mauro, is about the lights.
Yeah, that's something most people don't care about, but it's quite important. I'll show you. You need to provide light in the room, but not any kind of light. For example, if I have a light pointed to my face, you'd see me like this. So imagining, teaching like this. It's not unusual to see it. And also need to avoid the light against the camera, or maybe a window, perhaps, because it also will glow everything, and you appear quite black.
And also we would recommend when giving an online lesson to use a different type of feedback. If you don't use it in a normal one-to-one presential lesson, maybe it will be difficult at the beginning with the student, and you need to create a common language. But it has been proven already in the literature that providing visual feedback of frequency, loudness, timbre, or time via, for example, spectrogram, or a power spectrum, or a sound envelope, or a pitch contour, improves actually the student knowledge of results, and therefore it promotes the self-awareness and the appraisal skills of the students. That is what distinguishes a student from a professional musician, to have these skills. And of course, that is even more recommended when you don't have non-verbal communication cues, as for example in distance learning, because you don't see the whole student sometimes, and or you don't have a personal contact in that sense. So to create another way of communicating with the student, efficient, and direct his or her attention to particular aspects that you are working in that session, is quite relevant. So this is everything we wanted to talk about. Of course, it's not exhaustive. It's just some tips that we were thinking that could be addressed in our discussion. And I take this opportunity to, if you allow me, say that we are going to run a course on pedagogy and technology of the singing voice in UNED, the Distance Learning University in Spain, where we are, and you are welcome to disseminate this information about among your colleagues and students if you are interested in learning more about voice science with me, with Johan Sandberg, with Sten Turnström, Svante Granqvist, and Brian Gill. Thank you very much for your attention. And I stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Filipa and Mauro. That was so helpful.
You're welcome.
I know that we have some German colleagues who, Barbara and her colleagues, have been working using online teaching with in Germany. But we did have a few questions coming through. One question was, and we can all contribute to this one, do we expect our students to buy these microphones. And I think Leva said, is it a different microphone for different genres of teaching? And just to also say, I don't know whether Filipa, the presentation that you gave, which is so good and professional, will that be available as separate to the video recording, or is that only going to be available on the recording?
Well, we were thinking just to make it available in the recording, but of course, if you want, we are more than happy to share it with you. So I could send it to you as well.
Okay, so thank you for that. Um, um, has anybody got?
Yeah, I could say something about the microphones for all styles of singing.
Yeah.
As I said in the beginning, we build this presentation under the scenario of being a voice builder, so of being working voice technique and not coach. So for that reason, we presented a microphone that could be used for any genre of music, because what we are interested is on the most close to reality we can get from the voice of the student on the other side of the room. So of course, when we recommend these microphones, and this goes to the second question as well, it will be wonderful if the student could invest some money on that equipment too, because then it's actually important to have his or her voice as close to reality as possible. um, uh, of course, we cannot expect that everybody can afford this, although there is some tips that I gave, and Mauro as well, very cheap as compared to more professional equipment. But even though we know that probably that's not possible, however, in the schools, for example, uh, um, you know maybe the schools that allow the students to go there to have an online lesson and the teacher being at home, for example, the school could invest the money on a good equipment, for example. But I think nowadays students are very keen on having this type of equipment at home themselves, because everything goes around YouTube and all that. So hopefully they will be encouraged to do so. Don't know if you want to add something, Mauro.
Yeah, about the genre, if you buy this flat response microphone, omnidirectional, you have, as I said, uh, more close to reality voice that is possible throughout a microphone. But of course, there are some genres like rock, jazz, whatever, and some others that you're gonna sing with the microphone on the stage on a recording. And in these cases, I'd recommend to use more than one microphone. This flat response microphone for the general voice work, and the other, I like this microphone because it makes my voice much better. Okay, and I record it with this one. Okay, then train it if train with this other microphone later, because of course you need to be used to it. But for a voice building work, what you want is the closer to reality you can get.
Thank you. Is there anyone, I don't know, who's burning to talk or say something or contribute something? I know that Nats has had some excellent presentations in the summer conference about technology, but we in Europe don't always have access to some of the things that you have. Um, but I can see Barbara's come back again.
Yeah.
But Barbara, do you want to just say something about your online teaching weekend you've had with the Bidige?
Yeah, gladly. Hello to everybody. As you know, I'm not only concerned in finding solutions for the individual lessons, but mainly also for the training of future voice teachers. Our question is, how can we, under these conditions, now enable a proper training for our future voice teachers. And so there is this GPZ learning course that the BDG is offering. And it's a changing process from opera singers and trained singers, classical concert singers, into voice teachers. And this is the model that we have. This is our 3-pillar model of the GPZ. It contains voice physiology and methods of teaching, but mainly also Lehrpraxis, which is the practice of teaching. So how can we do that in an online course? We decided to continue our training despite all the limitations, and we transformed it into an online weekend course. So we just are recovering from a 24-hour lesson course over a whole weekend. And well, my 2 colleagues are here with me. It's Ilse Christine Otto from Leipzig and Martin Wölfel from Essen. And I just want to give a brief introduction and then let them also speak. Martin gave an introduction to the whole course under the sign of online teaching, also mentioning ethical problems and considerations. And Ilse, I think she has seen almost any tutorial on Zoom and how to handle the technical specialties. So she might perhaps want to speak about that. And I just wanted to say this central column, the practice of teaching, we found now then 3 solutions to do that. As all of the 26 participants were located in different places. So we had one model that said we had in-person lessons where one of our participants was teaching one of his or her students in the same room, while we as the whole course and the teachers were watching. But this is in person, watch at the same time. The second model was online, watch at the same time. That means one of our participants was teaching a student that was in a different place, and we as group were in a third place, so to say, and watched the online teaching. And then we had a special form also when our participants could send us video recordings of their in-person lessons that we were watching later, and we were cutting it and as teachers commenting. That was very interesting because then we really, what we normally don't do, we don't speak and interrupt the process of teaching. But as we had the videos and the lesson had already happened before, so we could really almost at any point stop and say, look at the hands, please, it would be recommendable to do this or that. And we could also skip parts that were not so important. So as you said before, it was very exhausting, but it was very gratifying. And we thought we could get a lot out of these 3 different forms of teaching. And now I would like to pass on to Martin or to Ilse, whoever of the 2 wants to say something.
Well, thank you. Well, we did have a great success with this course, actually, and all the participants were very, very grateful that we could actually offer some sort of advanced training during the lockdown. So we're also very happy that we finally decided to really do it. And in my experience, it's not so very much about the sound quality and the technique, but about the how to work in terms of methods, how to approach to a regular teaching situation. The thing I learned most during this course is that I really have to slow down a lot when I'm talking and when I'm teaching, and that you really have to break it down to a rather step by step, minimize the whole thing and go further step by step. That's the most important to have success with this form of teaching. Well, Martin.
Everything has been said so far, so not too many things to add. I agree to what Ilse said. My experience teaching my students in the university too is that is most helpful to go down in the hierarchy of vocal technique, and that you go down to the really simple things, because teaching opera students, this is what I mainly do, without a piano. Maybe we are talking about this later on, backups and so on, which I don't use, is hard, because after 16 weeks you don't want to do Dichterliebe anymore without a piano. This is really the hard stuff, but on the other hand, having this lockdown here, I enjoyed having less pressure on myself and less pressure on my students, not coming, with huge piles of music scores and so on, which they have to prepare for concerts, for performances, for other classes, and just to stick to the basic stuff. So this is something I really enjoyed, and some of my students could use this time really, really well, but depending on the, I don't know how to call it, how the personality of a student is structured, some take out of it take a lot out of it, and some don't. There were even some who refused to take further online lessons, and there was one or two students where I didn't see any difference between teaching them in presence and teaching them online. And none of my students has any additional equipment. So the hardest I had is teaching someone via telephone. Which I did, of course, to support my students, which I thought was one of the main tasks. But so I taught 16 weeks online till the break, but the motivation went down the longer the term took. So this is my experience, but from last week and from our course, I have to say it was a big challenge for all of us. But it was very good. We did it, and so let's see what future will bring, and we will make the best out of it.
Thank you for that. I know that on Tuesday we had a really good talk by Ilta Denitsoglu with the Latvian singing teachers. Hello, Ilta. He did a super presentation about the fatigue and also how to keep the muscles working when so many of our students and ourselves are not able to sing and perform as we would normally do. And that one will be available, I think, Edgar's, on when it's been edited. So that will be available for people to see. But it was very clear and helpful. I totally agree that the the motivation is now going down. They've been doing it for a few weeks now, and but I found I just had to really prepare for their lesson. I would send them a sheet of paper with ideas about where we might work. I then followed up the lesson with another sheet of paper, giving them exercises and suggestions to try and keep them going. And they would send me audio files, which as well I could help to respond. But fascinating that you're doing a teaching course that covers 28 singing teachers. It must have been exhausting. Now, I can't see the whole screen because we've got two, but if you'd like to wave your hand, if you've got something to say, please do wave your hand, and either Leva or Eleanor or I will have a good look and see if there's anybody wishing to contribute as I flick through from, Anna.
I just wanted to add really quickly to what Professor Wolfer said, Martin, that yes, it was quite difficult because we also had lockdown and everything like everybody else for a very long period of time. But what I noticed is, I have to admit, just a few students, but they made actually progress to because it was different surroundings. Well, yeah, they were at home, but it was a different focus on the teacher. I asked them how. I said, okay, you're doing what I want you to do all of a sudden, because they had this focus on me like this, instead of everything else somehow distracting them. And of course, they're quite natural being young. They're what they call natives to all of this technology, and to them it's probably less problematic than us. And so that was, I think, an interesting, let's say, a positive feature to this, to actually change, and maybe also focus to what we are saying, our maybe mimics on our face, they actually notice a little more. And so that's a good thing. Maybe somehow we should be aware of that while we're teaching online, that it's all enhanced because they're just focused on our face, probably, and maybe our arms. Just like they were mentioning, how to teach on different types of teaching. I totally agree on that. So that was a wonderful thing. And some of them are really looking forward to continuing that way, and then to come back to the classroom too. So okay, let's stay positive. So
can I take Manuela first and then Ilta? Manuela?
Hi. I'm teaching mostly jazz pop rock, so maybe for me it's a bit easier because we have all that karaoke tracks we can use, so that's something really beneficial. But in general, I recognize that the singers take more responsibility on their side because they have to. And I'm asking them a lot, like, how does it feel? What did you do? So they have to figure out more on their own somehow. And it's in pedagogics, we know that the one who's talking is the one who's learning. So that's really nice because I feel like they figure it out somehow themselves by trusting themselves even more. And that's so beautiful to see. This is something I feel like I'm trying to have a look at. What can I take from online teaching afterwards for my offline teaching? So not only what can I use for online teaching from my offline teaching, but the other way around as well. And I think we have to be more creative as teachers to cover the learning types, because maybe something we can't see that much, so we have to be more creative, like, okay, maybe is it an auditive one, maybe he doesn't hear me that well, but I can describe something, I can find a picture, I can I don't know, talk to him more analytic. So it's always when we have to be more creative, and that makes I don't recognize fatigue. My students are really highly motivated, and I find it really fun at the moment to teach online. Happily, luckily.
Wonderful. So I'll have Ilta, and then Filipa, and then Nikki Jane. Okay, just so you know, I've noticed you. Okay, Ilta.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you and hear you. And Filipa, thank you for this great presentation. One very dangerous thing for teaching online, for me, in fact, I have experienced this by myself. Controlling your voice is not so easy online because you are not in the physical lesson. You do not make the lesson to physical students. So maybe we can add in addition to the microphone quality, we can add a monitor for monitoring our own voices during our online lessons, because I experience in my lectures that after the lesson, I feel a bit itchy, and after normal lesson, I don't feel that in physical classrooms.
Yeah, it's really important. Our own health as teachers and the use of our voices, we must protect. Filipa.
Yes, just commenting first what Ilter said. That's why it's important to wear open headphones, and because then you can hear better your voice. And also, if you use an external sound card, you can actually increase the gain of your microphone, and then you hear your voice much better. So you don't need to raise it up. But besides that, what I wanted to say with this process of online teaching is one thing that we are discussing that for me is really striking. You know, scholars about pedagogy talk about the necessity of focusing on the process rather than the final product, which means that the online teaching is actually forcing us, all of us, teachers and students, to focus about the process of getting the final output, that is the voice we want to produce. And because we are focusing on that, the results are actually coming up quite nice, as someone said. So I think this is also an important consideration to take from this pandemic, that actually there are no shortcuts to prepare to build up a voice or a singer or an opera star, and focusing on the process is much more important because then we play the the students take the responsibility of knowing what they do with their voices to achieve a certain thing. And another thing I wanted to say about this pandemia and teaching online is actually another positive thing that comes with it is that when you teach using a computer, you can take your own notes about the student and keep a record of what you do in your classes. And sometimes when we are on a one-to-one face-to-face singing lesson, there is one student already knocking on the door to come in while the other lesson is still finishing, and you don't have the time sometimes as a teacher to process what happened with the other student, so you can help him or her much better in the future. So this time domain that you have, this quality of time in you do your schedule and you can force yourself to take your notes about the student and planning the next session is also, I think, a positive thing that comes up with this online teaching.
Thank you. So Nikki Jane.
I was just wondering, in regard to the whole problem of motivation, and of course this is different for different age groups. So I'm working with teenagers and also undergraduates at university level, and we've different institutions, but institutionally we've come up with online competitions where the students had to do either work with a pianist or another instrument, and do their own editing and do the videos together and have to put it together, or they could use Audacity and multi-track themselves vocally, and that got an enormous response from certainly boys who I'm working with, who of course love the technology, and then we're doing the same with the university. We've got an online competition, and we've made it quite open. If they can work in person together and record, that's fine. Otherwise, we would understand if they were working with the backing track and another pianist. But also, there's this. I don't know if people have done online concerts. I mean, it can work, and I did do one, and all the performers came in, they had pre-recorded backing tracks from actually staff pianists. It's not ideal, it's not the same. And then all the parents and families could come in and watch this concert. And we did a practice track and practice all the technology, make sure it all worked. And then we just ran it straight through. And that was also very successful. But one thing that really has come up, which I wondered about some of our experts here, is as more and more of this is happening, more and more of our youngsters are having to do, and this is true of my undergraduates, online auditions, online videos. They've got to record themselves on camera. And I'm not sure that some of the academics who are judging these things are quite understanding the difficulties for youngsters having to do their own recordings and their own camera work. And I just wondered if there's any expertise here, or we could get something together which will help teachers teach their students how to do this on their own, because this is the way going forward, isn't it? Everybody's going to have to record themselves, sometimes using only an iPhone or an iPad. Anyway, I've said a lot. That's one of my questions.
Oh, super, thank you. Martin.
I would like to add some thing we are facing in school now, since we can't do entrance exams in presence. We have to ask those people to send us video links, and this is very, very hard. In the first place, to listen to 170 people is yeah, I don't need to tell you how hard this is, and the conditions are so different. You know, some people have almost perfect high fidelity thing they send us, recorded in a church, and it sounds like they're in the wherever in the Carnegie Hall, and some people sing a cappella into their smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to judge whom to invite for second or third round to come to our university to sing in presence, or if we can't do this, to decide whom we're going to pick to be a member of a master or a bachelor program. This is really hard, and there's no solution yet for me.
I understand. I wonder, Alan, if I put you on the spot, but only because I know in the States, Nats have been discussing these things, or Karen or Carol. Do you want to contribute something?
I'll pop a couple of links in the chat. One I was just looking for is a relatively short little video that one of our members did and shared. You know, with us, they did it with some students, but just some really quick tips about video. And it's really, there's not a lot of talking in it at all. It's more graphic. Do this. Shows some examples of bad lighting, good lighting. You know, things like that. Not so good examples of where to stand in your apartment or your house and where might be a better background. Things like that we use. It's like 4 minutes long, so it's an easy thing. So that's one thing we've done. We've also been we've put more, obviously, instructions on our site for Nats auditions and things like that. I can share that link with you too. One of the things, I was just on a call yesterday about Revolving Young Artists Program auditions in the US that have been going on this fall. There were some consortiums of some of the larger programs in the country, like the Houston Grand Opera and Glimmer Glass, some of these programs where they kind of got together to try to help unify the audition process, since it was going to not be live. This is I know it goes on everywhere, but in the United States, people would call it a racket, I guess sometimes. You know, how much it costs students to travel to go to all these auditions when they're live, and all this kind of thing, and application fees and all of this. So there's been a lot of effort to try to help, and efforts like that are always going to have glitches with them. And sure enough, you know, there were little glitches or things that could have been explained better. So there's a lot of conversation going on online right now about the the good things and the bad things of that process this year. And it's not, I mean, not even over. That was just kind of the first round of things. So more like the pre-screening round for that. And so there are a few, some schools in the United States that are subscribing to some services that were already in existence, where they process applications, for admission to their universities and programs. And some of those services are expanding their services to add, video submissions all the way through the process rather than just the pre-screening round. So we're seeing a lot of things like that, and that's, it's par for the course. I think it's what we would expect, and there are going to be less than ideal situations. And one of the things we're talking a lot about here is equity of access, economic equity, and trying to message that not just to our members but to within universities themselves and departments, so that they're thinking about these things on the front end before they go listen to a lot of videos. And obviously we've all been doing this for a little while now, and we have good lessons, we have bad lessons, we have students that have all kinds of technology problems and access to that, and some of us ourselves have issues related to access. And so I think there just has to be a lot of understanding, and two, a lot of preparation of people who are evaluating all of these videos on the front end. And so we also developed some guidelines this year for our auditions, which have been online, and we've already run about 5,500 singers through Nat's auditions this fall. So it's gone pretty well overall, and we've tried to message and train people the best we can in assessing the voice and what they hear, and not talking about where they made their video or what they look like in their video necessarily in these times, and all of that, and just focus on what they're there to do, which is to evaluate the singing that's happening.
Thank you. We are now coming up to our hour, and I feel that all of us, particularly on a Friday afternoon, need to be aware of that. But I've just seen Eleanor's hand has gone up. So Eleanor.
And leave.
After all of this wonderful discussion about technological things and auditioning and teaching and so on, concern about our students, I just want to flag up how important it is that we look after our own physical and mental health. We're concentrating on small screens a lot of the time, we're sitting a lot of the time. How important it is to change your position, find a way of putting your laptop up so that you can stand, taking enough breaks, moving around, getting exercise. I baked some cookies this afternoon in between sessions. So getting enough variety into the day, because we're missing out on so much by not being able to teach in our normal teaching place.
Thank you. Thank you, Eleanor. Liv?
Yes, there were now three people who wanted to tell something, and it was Mauro and Karen and then Filipa.
Okay. Mauro first.
Okay. When I started teaching online about 7 years ago, there was no worrying about low latency teaching or anything like that. So I had to adapt my teaching technique. First, I started thinking, oh, this is not going to work. This is just for a marketing tool or something like that. But really fast, I saw that no, it works perfectly. It works just like a presential class. It works okay. And I had regular students that changed it to the online version of the teaching, because it was easier. I'm from São Paulo in Brazil. There is a huge city, a chaotic city with 14 million people. So you have a lot of problems with traffic and violence and other stuff like that. And people saw that it was easier and better to keep online. And I believe that this is not going to change now that everybody went to the online teaching because of the pandemic. I believe many students will prefer to stay online after that because they see that it works. So I believe we must be prepared for this new reality, as everybody is saying. Uh, I don't think that this is gonna be something like, oh, everybody's gonna return to the regular classes. No, I don't think so, because online works and it's more comfortable, it's more practical, and it's cheaper because you don't spend with transport and some things like that. So we must be ready for this new situation.
Thank you, Mauro. Karen.
I just thought I'd share a couple things that I'm doing in my lessons that I'm doing and very quickly. For one thing, I think because of my insecurities of not knowing for sure how people are doing in my studio at the university, I'm asking them to write a reflection. So this year I asked them to write one the very first week, do it their first lesson, which showed all of the things that they were concerned about and all that. Then midway through, at the midway point, they wrote another. And they could then talk about our connectivity electronically. Also, how are they doing emotionally? How many pieces are they working on? What are they using for an accompanist, or are they using YouTube things? Or there's a Muse score is another one. And then now we're at the end of our quarter and I'm collecting their final. And by and large, all but one have made phenomenal progress. And I think it goes back to the self-accountability of some of that too. But there are things you can hear better with a microphone than you can hear in person. Nothing gets hidden. Then the other thing I'd say is that I am using a thing where I share my screen once in a while with some little pedagogy 1 or 2 minute thing. And the one I'm using this week has a recording of Pavarotti's High C, and it's on Voce Vista. And so you can, start with the first harmonic and see them all and take them out and then put them back in. And it is changing voices just to hear that. Then finally, I wanted to just mention at the university where I teach, we hear about 500 preliminary auditions each year, and we receive those on Slate. So we can see the audition, we can put up a thing that we write our audition report, we can see the information about their curriculum that they've taken and their grades and all this kind of thing. And then when we invite them for a live audition, what we're doing is we're using Zoom, and they come and they wait in a waiting room. And then when it's their time, we let them in and we do see them perform live for us, but it is remote. So thanks for doing this. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you, Karen. And I think I ought to bring this to a close because, but you have, it's just been so wonderful to see you all. What a great blessing it is to see your lovely faces. And we just hope and pray that next year we will be able to at least have some meetings, face to face. I'm hoping that EVTA will do something else in a few months' time on something else close to our hearts. But I know that Nikki Jane Kemp, we've got the SOVT symposium on April the 11th, which we know will actually Filipa and Ilter and others are taking part in. So, but thank you all so much. Thank you, Filipa. Thank you, Mauro. Thank you, everybody, for contributing. Thank you for our American friends, Scott. It's wonderful.
Hello, Scott.
Because we just sort of feel it's hands across the pond moment, isn't it? So it's really good to see you. And thank you so much. It'll be recorded, it'll be edited, and then it'll be freely available. And do share it with your members, because we all need to help each other. So thank you so much. And thank you. And we'll say goodbye. I get teary when I say goodbye, because you are wonderful people.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Good to see you all.